that before. I don't typically do that, but there is a reason. And there's a running joke about that opening of the prayer taking just as long as the prayer itself, because you have to come up with all the different names for life and truth and mystery and all of those things, the spirit of being. And the reason for that is that we are not a faith of absolutes. We believe that we know, we experience, we create a spectrum of being together. So we are here this morning not to embrace absolutes or binaries, but to embrace a spectrum of being. And we know here in this space that that absolutes like old or young, woman or man, able-bodied or disabled, truth and mystery, good and evil, or broken and whole, are not things that we exist absolutely on one side or the other throughout our whole life. We are always in process of understanding who we are and growing and changing. That is what it means to be alive, to exist between those spaces, to wrestle with them, to understand them, to define them for ourselves in the moment that we are in, and to define them together as a community. That is what we do together. So let us continue doing that together today, and let us explore that some more. And if you're new or newish here, or been here for decades, it's good to see you. I'm going to light our chalice now for us this morning. A light to remind us that the energy of the universe is always in transformation. A light to remind us that when things grow and change, they can produce something beautiful and something that can give light, literally, to the world and reveal a path. Not forward, but around and side to side and through and up and down and between and connecting. Do we have someone to deliver our acknowledgements this morning, our call to justice, our call to care for the earth and each other? Is no one doing that today? Usually, often on Zoom? You want to do it? You were looking at me, so I'm asking you.
Sit in the back.
You should sit in the back next time.
I never sit in the back. I'm short. I used to sit in the front in school too. I was short then too. As always, we are meeting here in Chipuktuk in Halifax, in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, subject of Peace and Friendship Treaty. And we acknowledge that this earth is sacred to the Mi'kmaq, and it needs to be sacred to us as well.
Take a moment now to come into community further by greeting the people that you form community with. So greet your neighbors, say hello.
Good morning, everyone.
No.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Eleanor. Hello. Hello. I will fill you in on a recent talk by Tamara. Outstanding.
Oh,
and also,
thank you.
and Dimitri is touring Canada and he's coming to Halifax. I'll tell you more about that.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Hope you keep well.
Yes, and you. Hi, Noreen. Nice to see
Hello.
you.
Marie, hello. It's nice to see you as well.
We are so fortunate that the smoke is not here.
We are always in process on our journey. Let us sing of the journey together by singing our gathering song, Here Together, on the back of your order of service. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit.
Okay, everyone. We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for the winding road until us to this place. We are here together in this holy moment. Come on, everyone. Grateful for the winding road, yes, that brought us to this place. Thank you, 3 people.
Today is another question day, a day for responding to questions that you have asked of me, and a day for you to ask questions of each other, and a day for me to respond to some of them too. So I have a bunch of notes in front of me this morning because I've been putting together all the questions that we've talked about, and I've gone back to some that were asked a while ago. One of the reasons that I was mentioning this thing about like existing outside of the space of absolutes, in terms of our definitions of divinity, of life, of gender, of identity, of our bodies and who we are and how we understand the universe. I have a question here from the first time that we did a question thing, which is, I forget how many months ago now, and it says, does realizing the universe / God cannot be known make it less useful in our lives? I think that, I'm thinking that was maybe your question, I don't know. But you don't have to answer. Hey. Another one, okay, cool. So I came back to this one because it feels very useful for us this morning. Because I think actually the thing that makes the idea of a force behind the universe, whether that is supernatural or totally natural or preternatural, no matter what that force is, realizing that it cannot be known, I think is what precisely makes it useful, because it is a thing, the idea of trying to figure out what ultimate truth or mystery, or whatever that space is in between the two things, the process of trying to understand that and figure it out, the thing that calls us to want to like try to figure out what is the nature of reality and life, and what does it mean to be a good person, all of those questions are the point. It's responding to those questions, it's trying to answer them, and finding other people to answer them with. That is knowing it through the process of asking questions, and that is what makes it useful. So that's what we're doing. I will try to put it one other way for you this morning. Anais Nin said, "We do not grow absolutely chronologically. We grow sometimes in one dimension and not in another, unevenly. We grow partially. We are relative. We are mature in one realm, childish in another." I didn't learn how to tie my shoes properly until about 4 years ago. I'm terrible at knots. That's why I often wear Chelsea boots. And they look cool. The past, present, and future mingle and pull us backwards, forward, or fix us in the present. We are made of layers, cells, constellations. I've said this before, your body is an ever-evolving process. There is nothing static about the human body. There is nothing static about the universe. So, we're here this morning to ask ourselves who we are, where we have come from, and where we are going. And I'm confident that you will see that we are always in process. I'm going to come back to the theme of the questions that you have been asking and that we have been asking together. But for now, we're going to express ourselves in song. Because sometimes we just need multiple different ways to understand this. It's a cool question.
1003. Where do we come from?
Thank you. Yeah, did you hear? I'll say it again, just in case you didn't hear. We're singing 1003, 1003 in the teal hymnal. You're going to tell us what to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna have a drum beat from Mr. Riley back there. Yeah. Okay, so this song has 4 parts. We're gonna sing 3 of them. And this side of the room is going to sing the second part, and this side of the room is going to sing the first part, and we're going to repeat that after we go through the first 3 parts. Just follow along. It'll be fun. You can stand if you want, you can sit, you can concentrate, or you can just listen. Okay, here's the first part. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Okay, now number 2, everyone sing. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Number 3, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a everyone on 1. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Yep, now you're number 2, number 1. Ready? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? That's you. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Keep going.
I invite you to turn now to the mystery of your own hearts and the mystery of the path of your own life and the ruts and bumps and highs and lows and hills and valleys and waves of your life that you are riding. And let those waves carry you to our well of community, where we gather, where you come together, where you bring the things that you carry, where those of us who are flowing freely will help the others swim, and those of us who feel like we are being weighed down, perhaps, will be rised up, supported by those who we pool together with. This is our well of community. And I invite you, if you carry a joy, a sorrow, or a complex truth into this space today, if you have something that needs to be named in community, to excuse me, to come forward, and if you feel moved, when you feel moved, and share it with us briefly and put a stone in our well, or raise your hand and I'll come to you if you like. Well, I will drop one community-sized stone for the mystery of all of our hearts and lives and love. A stone for the complexity of all of us. A reminder of our ability to lift each other up when we fall. And a reminder that what we do has an impact. And I will share with you these words. I say that it touches us, that our blood is seawater, and our tears are salt, that the seed of our bodies is scarcely different from the cells in seaweed, and that the stuff of our bones is like the coral. I say that the tide rolls in on us whether we like it or not, and the sands of time keep running their intended course. I say that we have to go down to the wave's trough to find ourselves, and then ride its swell until we can see beyond ourselves into our neighbor's eye. I say that we shall never leave the harbor if we do not hoist the sail. I say that we have got to walk the waves as well as solid ground. I say that anyone who goes without consciousness of this will remain chained to a rusty anchor. May the journey find us worthy. I invite you into some silence now. This song, Woyaya, are from the Afro pop group of Ghanaian and Caribbean musicians called Osibisa, and they were arranged by excuse me, Issei Barnwell. The words mean, the word Woyaya is a bit vague in terms of what it means, but here in the song it is given the meaning of we are going. Heaven knows where. Some people have suggested that let it be might be a more accurate translation, or que sera sera, or what will be, or I am. I invite you to join in singing if you wish, or just to listen. It's number 1020.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa yeah yeah, 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 whoa yeah yeah. There we go. Let's do we are going again. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah yeah, 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 oh yeah yeah, oh yeah yeah, yeah.
So, it's the job of this community. It is the task of this community. It's really hard to to make myself take myself to stop using capitalist terms to describe what we do sometimes. I just try to make those shifts in my mind to recognize the importance of how language shapes who we are. Is this a job that we do together? Is it a task? Is it a purpose? Is it a mission ascending forth into the world to spread some kind of good news to the world? To model, perhaps, a way of being that is reflective of the values that we express of who we say we are. To model a way of being in the world that shows that we do not need to exist necessarily in the extractive capitalist structures that our society is modeled after. What does that have to do with the future of this community? We're responding today to some questions that you've been asking, and I've compiled them into a few different categories that I've already been doing, but I've focused them for us so that we can have a conversation. You asked me to tell you where you're going, to give you clear instructions and a checklist, perhaps, of where you're going. I know you didn't ask for that. I'm going to ask you to ask that of yourselves, but I also have some insights, hopefully, that I can offer you this morning. The questions that I've organized that you asked last week, but I've also taken some that have been asked before, that I think actually the questions you asked are fantastic, because I think that they get to the core of what this place exists for. So I'm gonna just explain to you what the three categories are that I found in your questions. I'm gonna offer a little bit of insight, and then I'll invite you to go into some conversation about it. But the first sort of category of questions that you were asking, that I was asked by you, is how can we be a successful lay-led congregation, since most likely you're not going to have a minister with you for next programming next year? Could you share any, I'm just going to read a couple of them that I've categorized together. Could you share any ideas on how we continue to grow as a community as we are lay-led for the next chapter? So those are kind of together. And then I combined it with this one, which was from a little while ago. And says, how do we live practically in community with people who share our values but have very different ways of demonstrating them? And I actually thought that was a key. I think that's a key way of addressing that and responding to that. But I'll say why in a minute. So that's one category of question. The second one that you asked was some version of, is there anything unique about this congregation that you have observed here? So you were asking me to give you observations about who you are. And then there's a question here about how do we move away from being tied down to the ways that we've always done things. So I've categorized those together for a reason, and that's because here, I'm going to put them, when we have a conversation, I'll put them in a pile, but this congregation is unique in a lot of ways, in that you have had periods of being lay-led in the past, and you also are very small, but that means that a lot of people here have taken up lots of different tasks, and I think you're capable of doing them, again. But a key thing that I just want to share, and the reason that I kept talking about journeys and paths and growth and change and not existing in absolutes today, is that I think determining the future of where you go together is a couple of things are really important for that. One is there's a story of, I'll give you the very, very 30-second version of it that I've heard before, which is that there's a story of a grown child, right? And when they were growing up, their parents at Christmas time always used to make a ham, right? Or maybe it was Easter, let's say it's Easter. Ham is more of an Easter thing, I think, okay? They would make a ham every Easter. And the mother would always cut the ends off of the ham on each end. Has anyone heard this story before? Okay. So the mother would always cut the ends off of each ham and then put a special sauce on it and put it in the oven and glazed and baked, and it was delicious. And so the kid saw their mom doing that and made it the same way. And one day that kid got married, and their spouse, and they were trying to teach their spouse how to make this very special Easter ham with the special ingredients in the sauce. This is more than 30 seconds, I guess, but. And their spouse was like, well, why do you cut the ends off? Both ends off of the ham. And then they finally had to sort of wrestle with that question for a second. So they went to their mom, who made the ham, and she said, well, your grandma always used to do it that way. And so they made a trip to grandma's house. But grandma had died a couple of years before, but grandpa was still there. So they asked grandpa, remember that ham that grandma used to make? It was so delicious. Why did she always cut both ends off of the ham before she put it in the oven? What's that? Exactly. Yes. Exactly. I'll repeat it. So grandma had to cut the ends off of the ham because she had a roasting pan, and the ham wouldn't fit in the roasting pan that she had, so she had to cut the ends off of it to get it to fit in the roasting pan. So she was limited by the tools that she had at her disposal, and she adapted. And this adaptation was influencing, this is like the story I told you last week about the 2 Roman horses' asses and why railroads are the size they are today. It's another version of that. Here we are in a church, something that's called a church. That's what it's called on our sign. And we have lots of things that we do a particular way because we have been handed down this way of doing things. And it might produce a perfectly delicious ham. But sometimes we have to ask ourselves, do we need to keep cutting both ends off of it? What do we do with both ends when we cut them off? What do we use them for? Is it time for a new pan? Should we be eating ham to begin with? The point is that you're going to have to do things in a new way. So don't keep doing them the same way they've always been done, because you don't have to. The ham might be delicious, and maybe there's some things about the recipe you don't want to change. But the point is that, and I've tried to give some examples of ways that we can be together. The point is, try things out, try something new. I think that will be a key. Experimentation, being willing to try things new. And knowing that if you try out a new recipe that's not tested, sometimes it comes out really bad. But then you just try something different the next week. And the reason that I mentioned this thing about how do we live with people who express the same values, but have the same values, but express them a bit differently, I think a key to community, any community really, but a key to organizing community is to lean into the fact that people do express values differently sometimes. If we can identify core values, but know that everyone has unique gifts and unique talents, and we lean into that and encourage those talents and gifts to be expressed in the unique ways, then I think that is a key to how you get things done in community, how you can develop a more richer and interesting and beautiful and meaningful community that way. But I want you to talk about these things together. But there's one more category of this that you had asked me that I want you to talk about. So there was a question here about basically should the church or should the congregation give away all of its money or not, and if so, what percentage? And then there's a question about what's the most important social justice issue. And in Canada specifically. And then there was a question about how do you feel at peace with yourself when you have privilege and see so much suffering. This is an older question, but I would categorize that together. And in terms of how it relates to this journey that we're on, this process, I would say that what I've said before, all social justice, racial justice, economic justice, climate justice issues come from the same source, which is our culture of disconnection and extraction. And so what I'm saying is they're all interconnected and related. So it's your job to figure out what makes them related and work on the cultural change behind it. But this thing about privilege and giving away money, or we often like to think that just giving away money is, one way to solve the problem. I would suggest it's cultural, and we need to kind of look at our culture, and that's what the power of religious or spiritual community is, or just intentional values-based community is, that you can practice those little changes that we talk about in small ways. And how that relates to money is that, yes, you can use the resources of the congregation to address those problems, but it's the process of working on these things together and talking about them that is most valuable. And so with the time that we have now, it wasn't my task here to give you the answer to these questions, but to give you some thoughts for thinking about them and talking about them together. So I'm not going to have you respond to all of these questions. What I'm going to say is that you can go into a couple of different discussion groups based on the question that you want to talk about today. So there are really just two categories, I would say, of discussion. One is to talk together about what does, whoever wrote this question, it says, how can we be a successful lay-led congregation? I would say successful is not the right word, is not the most useful word here. It's how can we be a transformative congregation of people? How can we be a congregation of people who are working towards a deep sense of mission or purpose? So, I did it this morning too with that kind of language. My point being that it's not about like growing and having more members. It's about the people who are here having a deep sense of purpose or mission. If you don't like the word mission, I'd say purpose or core values, and express that through how you come together. So the question is, and I'm going to give you all of these Post-its if you want to look at them, but so there can be one discussion group for strategies for that, for how you can. I'm going to tell you that I think that developing a deep sense of mission is the most important thing. And that is what will make you successful. That is what will make this place matter. That you need to have a convincing reason for yourselves to get up out of bed in the morning and come here on a Sunday. So whoever wants to talk about that, and then whoever wants to talk about how you will focus on the issues in the world that you think need to be addressed. And I don't mean like, how are you going to solve the world's problems? I mean, what are you going to do together that's going to address them in small and meaningful ways? They don't have to be world-shattering, deconstructing ways. Because from the very beginning of today, I was talking about how things are always in process and things don't exist on absolutes. The change that is made culturally happens sometimes in little tiny ways that we cannot see on any given day. So there's a lot of you here, you probably don't want to just form two groups, but you may want to go into groups of 5 or so, or however many you want. But I'm going to suggest that you gather for a moment, and if you want to talk about those questions on this side of the room and those questions that side of the room, and if you need to spread out, you can. And Of course. Yeah? It's likely. It's likely, but I'm giving you two different ways of approaching them. What do you think about that? Because if I just said, what do you want to be? And sat down, that would be hard. These are still hard. But I'm giving you a little bit of a framework for how to think about them. Because sometimes when we have these very nebulous concepts, we have to give them some substance to be able to talk about them. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Yeah. So don't go in groups of 10.
How do we do it with our group? I'd like to suggest in our group, at least for me, how to focus on issues in the world that need to be addressed. I think it's basically education, learning more. I think we've been living in illusions and have had a disconnect from the larger world issues. And I think they are so connected that without the larger picture, finding what's best for the small is just not possible. Any of our group, Joe and Dean and Afia, Noreen, do any of you have thoughts?
Yes, I am here listening.
Afia, you were starting to say something?
I I am here and listening.
What are your thoughts?
My thought is as we are living in this world, how we come and how we should live with peace.
You know, I'm sorry, I can't, the sound, I can't clearly understand what you're saying, unfortunately.
Uh, is my voice is not clear?
No, that's better, the way you're talking now.
I did. I was saying that. Please 1 minute. Where from we come and in this world
You're from
and
where?
where from we come in this
Oh,
world
Muslim, yeah.
and we should live as a peaceful.
Sorry, what? Say that again.
We should live in this world peace.
In peace,
Peace.
yes.
Actually, voice is not clear because of
I lived for
can
a while in northern Nigeria with Muslim people, and it was very, very interesting. I learned a lot.
uh, yes, it is interesting. But I want get some book if I want read and learn more. I I listen this message. Some I understand, some I don't understand because
Could you
maybe
speak just a little slower? I think it's just an accent that
yes, my accent
English.
is
Okay,
because of I am saying that I attend meeting. When I attend, some I understand, sometime I don't understand. I want get something like a book if I learn more. So clearly, you listen to me.
yes, yes.
Uh, okay, but how can I learn from Google about you this words and concept?
Okay. Does anybody else, Joe, do you want to comment? Dean, are you going to, Noreen,
But
you have,
I don't understand what you want to say. Hello,
hello?
can you
I,
hear?
yeah, um, I think uh, uh, the issue of not understanding other cultures, I think basically people need to understand that everybody wants, people all over the world want safety. They want a safe place to live, uh, housing, uh, food that and water that's clean, healthy. Uh, and I think the biggest issues in our world is, in my opinion, the United States and those who are connected to this, uh, to the like this idea that one country controls the rest of the world, has used other countries for their own good rather than what's best for their own countries. And I think those the capitalist world that we're in is
Okay, please. I have question. Can I ask? Hello.
hello, yes.
I have question. Can I ask? When in every Sunday, why put the stone in water? I saw in meeting. What is concept?
What concept?
Why stone put in water every Sunday? And everyone say something.
Could you write it in the chat what you just said?
Yes, jar put stone. What water stone jar, or I think in camera I cannot see clear. In jar put stone every Sunday.
Sorry, I'm somehow not understanding the words you're saying.
I want to ask in jar every Sunday put stones and say something. On stage have one stool and stones, and everyone puts stone in jar and say something. What is
Yeah,
meaning?
it's a way of just expressing people's thoughts about before they used to light a candle or something, a joy or sorrow or in this. So instead of writing a candle, they are using the water as a symbol of the world, the ocean, and land, and like the stone and thing. So it's just a way of, instead of lighting a candle, putting a stone in the water as a way of expressing feelings. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand. Like a salvation. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. And what do you think as a congregation? The two questions are,
Every Sunday I was watching, but I don't. I was thinking when I asked, so I asked. But today I asked. I think it's good idea.
yeah.
Sorry, I got interrupted, but what were the questions?
They're in the chat.
Oh, okay.
How can we be a transformative congregation of people?
I'm going to interrupt just for 1 minute
Yeah.
and then let you resume. I apologize for interrupting. The thing that I want all of you to do, whether you name it out loud in your groups right now or identify it for yourself, is in response to these questions, or whichever question you have chosen to discuss, what is one thing, depending on which way you want to do it, or this way, I know. What is one thing that you can do, that you're going to do, to practically, to apply what it is that you're talking about? What's one commitment you can make to this congregation, to this community, even if it's your first time coming here, to do these things? And I encourage you to say it out loud, but you don't have to. So you have
Noreen, did you
5 or
look at the
so,
chat and see the
5,
words?
6, 7 minutes
Yeah.
maybe.
Are we in a,
Sorry, go ahead.
are we in a group?
Well, he
Or
just, but those of you on Zoom who want to talk to each other, go ahead.
Okay.
So Afia wanted to understand about why the stones are put in the water. But these two questions,
Yes.
Joe and Dean, you haven't commented on these two questions. Or Noreen, do you want to go ahead?
Right. Well, I'm not sure what to say, but I felt affected when realizing that there may not be somebody for like quite a while.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, how does the community keep together with, the vision? And I'm not sure what to say right at the moment, but did anybody say anything about that
Well,
so far?
that's why they're having the discussions now, and then they're going to come back after.
Yeah, but I mean, and just in this group,
In our group,
how long?
no.
Okay.
I commented that I feel that unless the larger issues of the world need to be understood in ways that I feel a lot of people don't understand, because the media, we get fed for years and years and years a certain view. And I happen to think the idea of our economic system, capitalism, as Israel talks about, this underlying everything for profit. And so the majority of people all want the same thing. They want to have respect and and security, that they're safe, they have their basic needs met, are healthy, and housing and food, and a way of contributing to the world. And the way the system is set up, billions going for war all over. And Canada, in my opinion, supporting the US, who has these military bases and has done, whether it's a war in Afghanistan or Iraq, or, going way back. I just think it's criminal, and we need to change a system. And
But do you have ideas about how we do that as a congregation?
well,
And what happens when there isn't a minister to talk about things? And I think in my experience over the years, Israel said too that he feels that we can do it. And over the years, I've been to some services where there's either been someone who's been passionate about an idea and talks about it, or brings other people in. But definitely doing things to create awareness. I agree.
I think the history of Unitarians is a lot of head talking of the idea, but not, okay, so what do we do? And I think Israel, that emphasis is really, really important.
Right.
And so I think issues of just saying, why do we have the poverty that we do in Nova Scotia? And so address, at our local level, where do our taxes go? Where does our money go? Why is it that we have such poverty here in Nova Scotia? And link that to the bigger questions. Why is it our universities have focused so much on foreign students? And I have children living in other countries, one of them being in Russia. So I know about foreigners in other places, but I think the emphasis for right up to the present, we have all these universities, and the focus has not been how to increase Nova Scotians who live in poverty, who have had not access to education. And education begins so early in health issues and all of these, without a basic income. That's one of the things I've been working on, to say people can't address the larger issues unless they have basic income to ensure that they have a safe place to live, and enough food for their children and
Well,
themselves.
I think that everybody would agree with what you're saying, but as a community, what do we do next? Because you're
Well,
saying, you have said that you consistently talks about things, but what do we do? So for example, as a community, there's a breakfast on Saturday. Is that, in your opinion, is that a viable offering? as a
I
community?
asked Israel about that because I was saying how just in communal gardens, and is that something that people coming on Saturday, if we got this grant, a decision was made votes are done last night, I don't know. But I feel it's important to give, but unless the people feel that they too have a role to contribute, so they're part of making change, however small, and which I
Right.
thought having community gardens might be something. So, and Israel said he doesn't know anything about the people coming Saturday morning, and I don't either. So but I always feel from childhood, and it came from my parents, is people need to feel they're not always on the just receiving it for you. They have to feel that whatever abilities they have are being nourished so that they can make some contribution and feel in some way.
I'm not sure that everybody's capable of doing that.
Well,
And
yeah,
then
but
giving is a way of caring.
well, I agree in
That's
giving,
only one thing.
but is there some way? But like if this particular group, is there some way?
Perhaps, yeah, I love that idea. If people want to contribute to the garden, I think a garden would be a wonderful.
Who wants to tell me what
second
one of their
thing.
commitments is?
I just feel everybody needs to
Want to
feel
share?
that there's something,
Like,
ever small,
Like
they
this.
can contribute and be
Yeah.
part, that they're respected for
somebody?
something.
Mhm. That's something to talk about. That could be a Sunday gathering
Okay.
topic for sure.
Order!
Amy and I will just share here, but we were reflecting on the past and this congregation's experience with lay ministry, and how maybe we could use that as a jumping off point. And so we started thinking, although we really liked the themes for each month, and we'd like to be able to fit that in. Amy wrote down 4, if you're looking at 4 Sundays in a month, how it might look or how it could look for lay Sundays.
So one Sunday would be the music theme, and one have an outside guest and an inside guest, and then the fourth be a community gathering that has food one way or another, like whether it's a real potluck or just finger foods, or just saying that there's going to be a special coffee hour kind of thing, and make it like a real community like not party, but make it like it's a real social, like come and meet your neighbors, meet whatever, and put the word out to the bigger congregation and the people that used to come to the regularly come to the Saturday brunch, that hey, this is a time that it's not so formal, you can come.
We also shared our personal, when you asked us to think about a personal commitment, so we did share that, which was good, and I guess remember to do that.
Does anybody else want to say very briefly before we close? Anything? Amy is the new chair of the Sunday programming community.
On that end of the hall, we committed to actually explore and understand different models of doing church from a lay-led perspective. Not particularly. They can hear that we accept that there are successful lay-led congregations out there that may be roughly our size, and that we will explore how they do it. And then I also elicited from them the commitment on behalf of the search committee to participate in the process, to come to every opportunity they have to ask the question of how would we do this differently? What if we didn't have X service in this, X committee in this this congregation? How could it be different? How might things look different?
Retreat. Okay. I'll give you the last word, Irene.
Our group kind of talked about that we're not starting from scratch. You know, there are different committees, and there are already some ways to approach things, and there are there's the worship committee, there's the pastoral committee. There are different committees, so we don't have to start from scratch. And the other commitment was that to come, whether during a time of change, that people commit to come during the time of change instead of just going away and coming back when things are settled more.
I want to encourage all of you to share these commitments and these things with each other. And so I'm going to think of something for next week, an activity that can happen during the picnic where you can just informally share them if you want to keep discussing them. So hopefully that gives you a reason to come to the, is it going to fall? Picnic next week. For the, it looked like it was falling from my angle, that's why I touched it. For the dance of community that we do, let us now sing. Number, Jessica, number 311 in the gray hymnal. Maybe you want to get up and move? Up to you.
Let this be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Let times do. Let this be a dance. He messed me up. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the word, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest of the seed. Let this be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. The good times and the bad times too. Let this be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow in the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. Sorry about that. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. Come on, let's dance. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times no lie. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let this be a dance. Cha cha cha. It's not in there. I added it.
We take an offering for the work of the congregation. And this week's offering is it for the Saturday brunch? Do you know? I'm lost track of which week we're in. Okay. And my announcement is, if you remember, bring a flower next week for our flower celebration, our flower ritual, what some call flower communion. And we'll have a picnic next week after the service. We'll providing, do you want to say more? Are you saying something about that? Okay.
I sent out an email, but next week is our end of the year, like not end of the year because we do stuff over the summer, but the end of church programming year. It'll be Israel's last service. And we do a picnic barbecue thing. We have our new deck, but I sent out an email, but I need volunteers to do, set up and stuff if you can. Bring food if you can. If you can't, that's fine. We provide hot dogs and hamburgers. I need someone to help me check that the barbecue's working and we don't need propane and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll have fun next week, and let's all, cross our fingers, wish to the universe, whatever you do, that it's nice. Please let it be nice. Please, please, please.
Special performance by the choir next week?
Yes, and the choir will be singing a song.
Next week we will. It will finally make sense. We will have the choir, and then we will have the after choir.
Oh, we will?
I think so.
That's awesome.
I believe so. Yes. All right. Well, let us close out our space today and give thanks for this day by singing here, and thanks for this journey.
Okay.
By singing our closing song here together on the back of your order of service.
I thought he was changing my words again.
It's let it be a dance.
Oh, 1, 2, 3. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. And my prayer for you is a peace that's true until we meet again. Amen. Everybody sing.
Bye, everyone. I have a